Well, the chance for Noble to try and fix things is going to start here in the picks and bans for Game 2. This is their chance to go in and at least get the split off. We've talked already a little bit about how important these points are for them, and Spacestation has been playing like it. Now it's time for Noble to show us that they can do that exact same thing. Come in, at least get a split here, and try and get a little bit closer to that middle of the pack.
Jingwei, the first ban for Noble. This is that throwaway ban we talk about
Right.
all the time in that first pick position. As you mentioned, John, this is a god that Zapman likes to play a lot. And Wowy, even though it was first picked for him in that game, I never really feel like Wowy was making a huge impact in that one. Really wasn't able to because Noble was always on the defensive, at least the beginning of the engagements.
And we're seeing what you get when you're the first pick. You get to force Spacestation Gaming to make bans like this. They're the ones that got to ban out that RDO unless they want Noble to first pick it up, as well as having to ban out Fafnir and Ganesh. We're seeing a lot more focus here lately, I think, on banning out these supports.
As you mentioned, with Terra kind of falling off with the nerf, we saw her played earlier on today, but didn't get a victory. This is just the kind of quick reaction. Now, where teams go with it, new supports will rise. That's how it always is. New gods will rise that didn't have great matchups into Terra, mobile gods mostly. Those sorts of things will go, but this is the first competitive that we've seen on the other side of those nerfs, so this is just kind of the knee-jerk reaction so far.
I think if you can get a Wheelix on your team, Sobek's looking pretty nuts right about now, but we see Yi locked in for Zapman. Want to make sure he's on something comfortable, and andinster wants to run it back on the Thoth. So those big two hard carries are picked up for Spacestation. That's their focus, but Noble look to take away the Nemesis. They don't want to see Homiefe on that anymore.
I like this counter pick by Noble. I think I would have preferred to see them go with Thoth first pick, honestly, because of how good andinster was on a number 1 and how good moswal is on it as well. But Nemesis Sylvanus, they liked that composition that Spacestation was using, so they say, hey, we'll give it a shot ourselves. Do need to be worried, though, because between Yi is so good into Sylvanus, because he locks down that character really, really well. Now Osiris for Spacestation, which locks down that Sylvanus beautifully. This could be jungle for Homiefe. He's played it before. Would be great up against that Sylvanus, but would need to be worried about that Nemesis in the jungle for Skeeledon.
Osiris does have a strong matchup going into Sylvanus, so that's something that could pose a problem. Now we're going to see what Jigz wants to go to in his support pool without having that Sylvanus available for him. Naja is the ban out for Noble, and Spacestation banning out Cupid, so they think Cupid is likely to be something that Wowy might want to take into that ADC role. Love
it. Really smart ban by Spacestation, because Wowy's played Cupid a lot during his time in the SPL and has had a lot of success on it, and it's great into the composition that Spacestation has drafted thus far. Another AMC ban taking that out of Wowy's hands. Naja and Serket mean that Noble think that Osiris is going into the solo lane for Scary D. Could certainly be the case. You just have to wait and see what they want to go for, and it is going to be Thor, so will be Homiefe on the assassin in the jungle, leaving the warrior to Scary D.
And it's a smart ban, I think, from Noble too. Serket's so strong in the Sylvanus that Spacestation, even if that wasn't the plan all along, can kind of flex into that Serket. So just take it away from him. Noble, though, do take Ram, which we saw Zapman on last time. So Ram makes it this late into the draft. No reason to force it early. And Scylla's going to be the pick for mid lane for Noble. I mean, we know moswal can follow up after last game.
It's true. And my only worry is in the late game, there's not a lot of setup for this Scylla. In the mid game, Sylvanus is going to be there all the time. Wrath of Terra is good, some of the best in terms of setup for this Scylla. But in the later stages, when Sylvanus won't be able to be that initiator, how well can moswal position and try and get those I'm a Monster resets? Now this draft for Noble is a little bit more early game focused but recognizing that he will most likely be the focus, just as Jigz was in game number 1, going for the more defensive option with the shell.
And it looks like the call from Spacestation is to be aggressive into the jungle of Noble. The Osiris and the Thor, both very strong early game, especially Thor with his passive, where he gets stronger the more enemy gods he's literally got around him, the stronger he'll be. So that makes him strong in this early game level 1 fight where Skeeledon and the Nemesis won't have a whole lot available to him.
But it looks like Spacestation's willing to just go to lane and allow Noble to start up that speed buff at least, where Andy and Jigz starting together in the mid lane once more. But moswal with Wubbn on the Sylvanus, this should definitely favor Noble in terms of clear.
And it looks like it does. Spacestation just kind of backing up, and moswal and Wubbn are going to rotate over to try and help out on this solo side jungle, where we already said Spacestation are going to have a good bit of pressure. Instead, they just go ahead and go for these mid-harpies since Space Station aren't invading on any actual buffs. And this way, now Scary D and Homiefe can come back and just take those fire elementals, no problem.
This is pretty much a wash on the right-hand side of the map, with Noble getting right side mid-harpies and Space Station getting fire elementals. It's a matter of what Noble's going to do with this pressure on this next wave on the right-hand side. Whalrus should be pretty close to transforming and will be very close now. So will this invade be the call for Noble? Looks like they're going to the enemy blue.
Yeah, they should have been able to recognize that no buffs were picked up by Space Station. Nobody was carrying it around, and they could see him in wave the whole time. And that pressure from Wubbn and Whalrus, or Wubbn and moswal, they're able to be here to help that clear and the speed buff be very, very quick. Horrific Emblem comes out, but the sprint's enough for Homiefe along with that hammer to get away, no problem. But now they are going to go back in on this blue.
And Homie looking for the fight onto Whalrus, who'd already used his 3 to get away. Now Homie's very low, and he's going to fall for first blood. Skeeledon with that one. Nice pull by Wubbn. Pull Scary D back in. The root right afterwards. Scary could fall here as well.
Wubbn playing the Sylvanus very well. The pull and the root to try and help lock him down. But Jigz finally arriving, able to get that shield off to help Scary D escape. The double bounce from Zapman on the Wowy. That's going to have him low, and not on the Jingwei this time. You're going to have to walk back, buddy.
He has a health bot still with that death toll, but I love what Zapman does. Using that experience, he knows that he has no reason to clear that wave and give that farm to Wowy. Force him to back, make him miss some experience in gold.
Especially with all the farm in this duo side or long lane side jungle being taken care of, there's literally nothing for Zapman to go do. So just freeze that wave and deny the farm out to Wowy after he gets that highlight reel double bounce on him. Now Zapman will have his ultimate far and away ahead of Wowy, which in and of itself could pose some trouble if Wowy comes up too far, but that's why we see Wubbn rotating in to try and alleviate some pressure.
But with Zap having red buff, honestly, it could potentially take a 2v1 in this scenario, especially with a full wave there. Zap could back right now and probably get close to finishing off his boots in a wave or two, but I think I'd rather see him wait it out, go for those Devourer's gauntlets right away and start the stack as early as possible.
Skeeledon taking poke from andinster, but it's Whalrus who goes in and gets the knock-up on the several members. moswal easily cleans that one up with the crush over the top. Now it's 2-0, sit the kills, and Noble, at least in the kill department, are out in front.
And again, it's Whalrus with pressure in the solo lane, Scary D behind in the early game. So will Whalrus be able to hang on to it this time and prevent Scary from coming back into the game very quickly is the question for Noble. I like that time that Skeeledon throws the ultimate onto one member of Space Station and then immediately switches targets onto andinster, trying to keep him down as well. He was a big problem for them in game 1.
And you touched on it. It's really that mid pressure that's been a big deal. moswal's been able to get over to these team fights and be a big part of them, sometimes before andinster's able to be over there. That's why that speed buff invade went so well. And we did see moswal eventually clean up the kill on this last fight as well. So moswal having some pressure has really helped out.
And it's a lot in large part due to Wubbn being in that mid lane consistently that helps moswal get that advantage and clear. But at the same time, Scylla does not have the same clear problem she used to with Soulstone. You only need a couple points into Crush to really full clear those archers. Doesn't take long for Scylla clear to become very, very good. And so moswal is only a point or two away from being at the point where he'll be able to rotate much quicker than andinster.
And to sort of move it away a little bit as the speed buff's coming online and Noble will take a look at it. But look at how Zapman's sitting up at the top of that XP per minute. That's big for him, being able to get that solo farm over there, force Wowy back. If Zapman can make a rotation, and he could have a big impact too, as Noble looked to contest one more time. Final Judgment was committed, and I believe that still wasn't enough. Noble get that speed.
I like the idea from andinster. He recognizes that Space Station doesn't want to fight for the next 90 seconds or so anyways, so may as well try and secure that speed for his jungler. Golden experience even more important than the buff right now. Doesn't end up going his way, but good thought.
Unable to stop that speed buff invade. At least, though, Space Station were able to take those oracles over there on that long lane side, so that's not a problem. Noble still looking for more, really trying to keep down Homiefe and Scary D on this solo lane side. And why wouldn't it? This is where they have all their advantage. They come over here to the blue buff. Hammer comes out and not able to contested, or at least it looks like he was able to steal it.
Bluestone is what makes the difference there. So Scary D, it will get his own blue, and really more worried about the golden experience at this stage than the buff itself. So good small win for Space Station right there.
Looks like the sprint might have been popping that last engagement, at least on the side of Osiris there. So that's something that won't be available for him a little bit longer. Again, 2-0 sit the kills here. Noble have, through this pressure they've been put on the right-hand side, have established a little bit less than a 1,000 gold lead, but this time we're seeing them put the little bit of a lead they have in the early game into action. Putting pressure onto this tier 1 tower on the right-hand side also could be a big win for them as they get 500 more global gold and a little bit less safety now for Spacestation on that side.
Scary looks like he got a little bit too greedy to pick up that blue buff that Homie dropped for him. Went in to get it, had to use his sprint, as you mentioned, and the ultimate as well, and go back to base. So that means that Noble takes that opportunity to get that tier 1 and right. Much better job from Noble so far of invading where they have pressure. It's been consistent on the speed buff, on the blue buff, using Wubbn.
Jigz blinking in, Final Judgment immediately following up from andinster, and the wall from Homiefe was perfect to separate Wubbn from the rest of his team. Zapman is able to rotate over and be a part of that fight. His ultimate, those suns, help them clean up Wubbn.
Scary in trouble on the right. No ultimate for him yet. Going to be coming up soon, but he needs to buy some time in order to get there. The rest of the team not even coming. No support, because Whalrus is going to knock him down before anyone can get there.
That's what Noble had to do with the hard commit from Spacestation on the mid lane. They knew they were free. Skeeledon and Whalrus were to commit on the Scary D, and they clean him up. And now that that tier 1 tower's fallen, Scary D's even a little bit further behind, Whalrus is going to be further free to rotate into the engagements. So the same way we saw Zapman sort of get a little bit of a lead and come in to help out that engagement, Whalrus will now be able to push up the wave and rotate into team fights and have a big impact with that Chulainn pick.
I mean, level 10 right now for Zapman on this Hui. He got the only kill so far for Spacestation as andinster actually used the beads there despite the shield being ready from Jigz. Bit of miscommunication potentially between the two. That was a huge play from Homie as well, hammering into range to block off the escape from Wubbn.
That wall was perfect.
If you've never seen Homie play Thor before, he's pretty comfortable on that god, if you couldn't tell already.
Yeah, Homiefe, I agree, was a big part of why that fight went so well. It took them a while to secure that kill onto Wubbn, so him being able to sort of them being able to isolate him was what made that happen. Ultimate comes out from Whalrus, hitting no one, trying to create a little bit of space for the rest of his team. And look at how hard moswal swinging with that crush.
Already, and that's without the Soulstone proc being available for him, not getting that extra little boost of power for having 5 stacks stored in there with the auto attack. So you can tell that moswal is already off to a pretty good start in this game and should continue to make a bigger impact as it goes on.
Scary D once again under trouble from Skeeledon, who's happy just to force the solo laner to back one more time because that blue buff is up. And again, this time Noble want to actually be able to secure it, as last time Homiefe was able to cheekily take that one away with that bluestone proc, and it looks like they were able to come over and fight.
Blue buff did go Noble's way. Now the ultimate onto andinster, who has a purification bead, shield already gone from Jigz, but Final Judgment was enough to scare Noble back. Now on the run, trying to get away. Again, got the blue buff, got what they came for. That's all they really that's all they really cared about.
And that plan from Noble is coming through very clearly. You can see what'll happen is Skeeledon will rotate over and not necessarily look for the kill, but just look to bully Scary D away from that solo lane, away from that jungle. And Scary D, because he's behind, he's forced to back. He doesn't have any kind of defense or anything online right now. And when they force him back, they take the speed, they take the blue. Or Whalrus will rotate over and have an impact in mid. And that's what we've seen from Noble. They're executing this lead very well.
Look at the net worth charts right now on your bottom left of your screen. It's Zapman on top. He's #1 in the game in terms of farm going his way. And then it's 5 Noble members. Yep. They've done a great job of getting every lane ahead except for this duo lane. And that's fine. Zap being a little bit ahead in this lane, not the end of the world. So Wubbn going to pull him in and hit him with the beads in the ultimate, but Zap going to force 2 away all by himself.
Zapman getting pulled in, and we all know Zapman loves to fight, so he was happy to have someone initiate for him. All right, let's throw down. He drops the ultimate on top of himself. His beads were forced out, so he'll be waiting about another 142 seconds for those to be back, but he is safe without any rotation needed.
Nice play by Wubbn there on the Sylvanus, getting those purification beads as andinster takes a big chunk of damage from Skeeledon. This is before Skilly finishes off a Heartseeker, a Stone-Cutting Sword, whatever he wants to go for in that second item slot. That Nemesis, so good at poking out the enemy now. That Slice and Dice just has so much safe damage.
Now, Noble's done a good job in this solo side jungle to try and establish an early lead. It's getting closer and closer to 2,000 gold now. What's the next step for Noble, the next obvious application of the lead they've established? About 1,600 or so.
I think I'd rather see them go for Portal Demon than Gold Fury right now, because if I'm Noble, I don't want to fight anywhere near Zapman. Yeah. Zap is the guy who's going to give us the most problems. So look for a pick in mid or on the right-hand side. Again, Scary's pretty exposed on this right side, because of the lack of tier 1 towers. So if Noble can get a pick, I'd prefer to see them go towards Portal Demon to stay away from Zapman as long as possible.
Zapman successfully stealing away that red buff with the strong clear, but it's the right side where Skeeledon's beads are already down. Homiefe up into the air looking to crash down as Whalrus does use that Rage Form ultimate to keep both Jigz and Scary D at bay. Coming back down as Homiefe just to pick up his speed so he can walk away happy.
And Noble starts backing up there because Zapman makes the rotation. He's in mid lane, and again, they do not want to fight around him. He's got 70 stacks on the Devourer's Gauntlets. He's level 13. Wow, he's got 3 stacks so far.
Another perfect wall coming out from Homiefe. Whalrus has nowhere to go and gets blown up by Scary D. Sprint comes out, and it's Skeeledon who could potentially be in trouble, but Scary D has no mana to make anything happen. Wubbn uses the ultimate, but Final Judgment comes through his back. Zapman ends up getting credit for that kill, and now Skeeledon is the one in trouble.
Great fight, all started by Homiefe's wall. Again, his Thor is so consistent for Spacestation Gaming. Now looking for the Portal Demon. And again, that's a fight that Spacestation want to take because Zap is there and he's ready to fight.
And this is exactly what we're talking about. When Zap has that pressure, he can rotate in and be a part of it. That fight happens, I believe, almost 100% because of Homiefe is that wall, though. But Zapman being a part of it, as you said, is such a big factor. That's where their only lead is right now, is when Zapman's able to be a part of those fights. He's so much more impactful right now than Wowy is, just because of how the early game went. Now it's Spacestation who have the Portal Demon, and Spacestation who have 4-3 in the kills. And now the gold is all but evened up as well. So Noble's early lead has kind of evaporated off the back of that one team fight.
And this is exciting. This is an exciting game to watch if you're a Spacestation fan. You know, it hasn't gone particularly your way so far, but for me, this is the first game where Zap has looked like Zap again during the fall split of Season 4. As I mentioned on the desk, took him a little bit to shake off the rust. Zap right now is looking like a dominant ADC once again, and we know he has it in him. He's been in dominant ADC basically his entire career, and to see him playing at this level again really excites me as an impartial viewer, but especially if you're rooting for these guys, this is the guy that can really take this team to the next level.
And he's way ahead of Wowy in terms of stacks, too. His Devil Gloves are fully finished off. So not only is Zapman a threat in these team fights, but if Noble commit too hard on the solo lane side, Zapman's a threat to just burn through that Gold Fury ult. Sun's rain down the Wubbn. Knockup is perfect. Andinster follows up with the Final Judgment. I don't know if it was even necessary, as Homiefe is up into the air. He comes crashing down and finds nothing, but Spacestation are happy with their clean pick on the Wubbn.
A nice decision by Noble to say, Wubbn's dead, we're not going to overcommit to try and save him. No one could have saved Wubbn in that scenario because Homie was looking for Skeeledon, who didn't have his purification beads up quite yet. Just now coming up off of cooldown. Wise decision by Noble to let him go.
And now it's Spacestation who are the ones who are deciding where the fighting happened. This is why I was saying at the end of last game that even though the gold was so even, it felt like Spacestation were the ones with the momentum or the ones with the control, because Spacestation are the ones who came over and aggressed into the jungle of Noble and forced that kill into Wubbn. And I mean forced. I mean, look where they were on the map. It's not as if Wubbn was out of position.
Zap on the red buff invade along with Jigz and Andy, but this is an outnumbered fight in Noble's favor. Ultimate onto Andinster, 2 onto him, as now up into the sky goes Wowy.
Wowy's up in the air to try and put the damage on the Andinster, who took a lot early, and they did clean him up. Jigz gets taken down. Remember that moswal damage we talked about? It sure helped Skeeledon clean that kill up. Now it's 5-3 in favor of Noble. They immediately turn to the Gold Fury, but Scary D and Homiefe are ready to rotate in on the back and try and contest.
Zap still here and healthy with that red buff. Gold Fury falling pretty low. Moswal trying to secure it with the crush and will do so, but into the backline goes Scary D right away. Looking for Whalrus now, turning around as that wall gets jumped over beautifully by Whalrus.
Scary D is doing such a good job, though. Skeeledon had to wait to use the dash to get through that jungle because of the wall, and that's why he ends up falling. Homiefe getting the credit for that, but up into the air as Wowy's very low, and so is Whalrus looking to try and get something back, but Homiefe just backs off. They were happy to get those 2 kills.
2 kills, and it really could have easily been 3. Homie leveling that Berserker's Barrage, not going for the Mjolnir's attunement level, the hammer throw that we see a lot of Thors go for. He's been maxing that 3 all game long. He's sitting at 5 points in that. He was in the middle of 4 members spinning uninterrupted. And as you mentioned at the beginning of the game, Thor passive gives him extra power based on how many gods are around him. That means that Berserker's Barrage was absolutely swinging. That being said, Spacestation should not be at that red buff. They have 2 people on the right-hand side of the map on their own side of the map getting speed for Homie. That's a 4v3 that Noble recognized beautifully and capitalized on. Luckily enough for Spacestation, Scary and Homie come in and do a great job to clean up that team fight.
Homiefe now very aggressive. Wubbn and Whalrus have a chance to lock him down. They force out his beads for free. So Homiefe just getting caught by Wubbn there and ends up getting those beads forced out. But, I mean, you can talk about that Berserker Barrage all you want, but I'm going to spend the game talking about these walls from Homiefe. They've been absolutely nuts. That's why Skeeledon died. That's why we saw the kill onto Whalrus as well. He's just doing such a great job separating the team members of the fight. And it's not just... And sometimes we see those walls where they're on the wrong side of the wall, but he's doing a perfect job with them.
Hasn't missed yet in this game, and don't really expect to see him miss in this game because Homie Thor is probably the signature character for him in my mind. Homie Zots, yeah, that's right there with it. The 1A and 1B. But this guy's been playing Thor at a high level for a long time.
For andinster to be comfortable going to mid so you can play jungle, you kind of got to be this nuts with it. Skeeledon, though, getting a little bit of a trade out with Homiefe. I think it came out in his favor since he's the one with a Sylvanus on his team, so he'll heal up just fine and back off. But one more time, the game is sort of swung, it feels, back momentum-wise in the Space Station's favor. They're up only about 500 or 600. The gold lead's not what I mean. It's the fact that they're the ones picking the pacing of the fight. But Homiefe has his ultimate forced out, and he'll have to back off.
Quick reaction there. Skeeledon holds the ultimate knowing that he doesn't need it to force Homie out of the fight. Maybe could have thrown it on him and found the kill, but decides to play it safe and not expend that ultimate and allow Homie to do the same on his side of the map. This time, Noble able to secure their own red, most importantly, keeping it out of Zapman's hands.
And I feel like for Noble, this is going to come down a lot to how well moswal can get his damage off in these team fights. Right now, Wowy is not the one having too big of an impact in terms of damage. It really feels like if moswal can hit multiple members with this crush or get that reset off on the Scylla, I don't want to steal Tom's top level analysis, but one Scylla ult can change a game, ladies and gentlemen. And Skeeledon is recognizing some of that andinster damage now.
Portal Demon pulled by Noble. Pretty low. There's the pull in on the Scary D, and he takes a lot of damage right away. Knock up as well from Wubbn, and up into the sky goes Wowy. Snipes. First one hits, needs the third, but the dot from Wubbn's going to clean it up for him.
And now that leaves Noble with the 5v4 to try and secure this Portal Demon. The ultimate from andinster was available, but I don't believe they even had vision on it to know how low it was. Noble get that Portal Demon and the kill, so that's a good job with them coming away with it all in their favor.
Nice pull in again by Wubbn, sets all that up on the Scary D. Wubbn playing really, really well this set. We talked about it coming in. He had struggled during the fall split thus far for Noble, but this has been his best set so far, no doubt.
I got to agree with you on both points. Yes, he's been struggling, and yes, he's been playing very, very well in this game. So that was exactly what we were talking about, too. It was the pull-in from Wubbn, but it was also the follow-up damage from moswal that came in big in that engagement. Yeah, the Wisps end up cleaning it up, but it's because moswal brought him down into that threshold. And we also saw this. Hold that thought
again from Homie. Cuts off the escape from Skeeledon, but not quite enough damage this time, even with the final judgment. Homie up into the sky, but probably can't come back down in the midst of this, even with Zapman coming back to the rotation.
And that's 3 ultimates on the cooldown for Space Station now without much coming out of it, so they'll have to wait on those cooldowns before they make any other engagement happen. Gold Fury only 30 seconds away from respawning, too, so this might be a chance for Noble to set up aggressively and try and make something happen.
Couple ultimates down on the side of Space Station, 3 out of the 5, but Zap's ultimate has been very, very impactful so far this game, namely in locking down Wubbn. But now that Wubbn's level 12, he went with Sprint, foregoing that blink, not worrying about the initiation. His pulls have been doing the initiating for him basically thus far. Good choice from him because it's been that Zapman ultimate, the Huyi Suns, that have really made life difficult for him. With that Sprint, they won't be as nearly as impactful.
And right before this Gold Fury come up, they are the ones with the vision. Check out Scary D. He's not quite here yet, so this is a moment where Whalrus can go in and get the knock-up on the 3 members and have a little bit of an advantage. They back up and start trying to get that Gold Fury down to half health, and Skeeledon was the one that was on zoning duty. Here's that Zapman ultimate that we're talking about how impactful it was, but Noble immediately dropped the Gold Fury so the DPS can't go on to it anymore. And there's the crush from moswal onto Jigz, who immediately gets deleted.
Skeeledon with the credit. Scary D doing his best to zone everyone away, but Jigz got blown up far too quickly for Space Station to respond. And now it's Noble the ones who have that sustain with the Sylvanus. Final Judgment comes off cooldown for andinster. Could look to try and steal it away.
And he is charging it up, trying to see if there's anything he can do to steal this one away. Not able to do anything about it, though. Gold Fury goes down in favor of moswal for Noble. And now they have Still not really that much of a lead, 1,200 gold, but at least controlling some of that neutral farm.
Back and forth. This game has had leads for both teams so far, and moswal's been positioning very, very well in these team fights.
Yeah.
Jigz just wasn't able to get any sort of survivability from the rest of his team, and moswal hasn't used his ultimate in about 10 minutes, it feels like. The last 2 engagements where they end up getting kills, they being Noble, it's off of just damage from Crush. It's moswal now with the Obsidian Shard. Look at the build that Scary D has gone for. Look at the build that Jigz has gone for. Neither have a lot of magical protection. Jigz has a little bit with that Hide of the Urchin, but Scary D has none. One pull in and knock up from Wubbn should be an instant Crush I'm a Monster combo from moswal. Scary D won't be able to survive it. They're the same level at level 15, and with how much penetration moswal has between the Spear of Desolation and the Obsidian Shard, and how much damage he has just from the base leveling of the abilities, beautiful play again from Homie.
Yeah, there's that wall one more time, and Zapman's got blood in his eyes, looking to clean it up, but moswal peeling for his jungler, keeping him alive. Send him a thank you text after this is over, because moswal saved you there.
Why does he have to text him? They're talking right now.
Well, I mean, you send him the text afterwards as a thank you. It's like a formal thing you do.
A text is formal now?
Yeah, especially because you like give him a link where he can go get like a nice bottle of wine, 20% off discount code, something like that. You know?
Would you say is it a newer link? Is it an old link?
No, it's a young link. Yeah.
Oh, is it now?
Yeah, it is. All right. Well, thank you for that one, Aggro. I really appreciate the young link shout out.
Can you tell that I've been working with Hindu Man a long time? That was the most Hindu Man thing I've ever done.
That felt more Tom than Hindu, but yeah.
Really?
Okay. Yeah.
I felt like that was more Hindu Man.
Hindu Man makes me laugh, but okay. Scary D over here invading onto the jungle under a little bit of pressure from Skeeledon and getting that tether off to try and shut this fight down. But now it's Spacestation who are having to back off just a little bit. We talked about how patient moswal's been being with his ultimate. It felt like Noble in general has just been patient this game. That fight on the Gold Fury was excellent to force the commit in. Zapman committed his ultimate, and they just went off the Gold Fury.
And again, that's what we saw from Noble in game number 1. It's just a matter of how patient can they continue to be as this game goes on. We're 22 minutes in, not quite at that 31-minute mark where they made their mistake last time, but right there, even with Spacestation thus far.
And that means Noble's got to find some way to get back into this game. Spacestation are the ones, 4-man grouped here, and looking to try and push down this mid-tier 1 tower. They recognize that they've got a lot of poke they can put off with Zapman and with andinster, and they're getting that poke out now, so they can try and do it, but the sustain is on the side of Noble.
But this gives, look at how far back Noble is. They need to be worried about where Spacestation is going. They could go right to Portal Demon, and they have enough damage now where this Portal Demon can go down quicker than Noble could even get there, potentially.
Still Spacestation trying to make this tier 1 tower happen. Looks like finally the call might be to sort of back off and see if they can get Noble to come into the jungle and fight him off that safety of the tier 1 tower and make something happen there. But Zapman, once again, they're on respawn for that red buff. That's been his for a while now. Wowy lost it earlier in the game since he's been a little bit behind Zapman.
And the poke on a Skeeledon is just so tough to play against. The long range, talking about hieroglyphic assault, so tough to get past that and not take a big chunk of damage. Even with that sustain from Wubbn, it's not a big burst heal. It's a heal over time. But andinster is completely alone here. Has to use the Aegis. A little bit too far forward, trying to steal away a purple buff that's really not too impactful right now.
And Skeeledon had no vision on the rest of that jungle. So once he got that relic out, it was a good enough victory for him to just go ahead and back off and know that that's something that andinster won't have available for him. That Aegis is still got another 140 seconds or so waiting on it.
And that's big because now at this point in the game, Skeeledon has one-shot potential onto a character that, like Thoth, that uses their dash and doesn't have an Aegis. Between the Stone-Cutting Sword and the Heartseeker, as long as you've got your ultimate up, Skeeledon can knock down andinster before he can be an impact in this team fight. And
it's not just the kills here, which are 7-7, but the gold really is all but even, like 300 or 400 gold separating the teams. That experience difference, though, in Spacestation's favor is something that could still be significant for a little while longer. Not quite at level 20 yet are all of our characters. Zapman and Wowy might be where we're really seeing that experience difference, though. He's level 20 and Wowy's level 17.
But moswal's got a level lead in the mid lane. He's got a 2-level lead, in fact, in that mid lane. Plus, you look at Wubbn having a slight level advantage over Jigz. Not nearly as impactful. You're right. Zapman being the main one that that Noble have to worry about. But I'm looking at moswal having a lead in the mid lane, saying that maybe my mid-mage can have a bigger impact in the late game than yours.
And we know that moswal has the damage. We've seen it coming out from these crushes. If he's able to find a big Scylla in these engagements, they very easily could go the way of Noble. And that's something that their team has too. They've got an ability to sort of clean up these team fights if someone tries to get away with low health, especially with Wowy. We've seen that. Even though Wisps can sort of tick over time and be enough to help sort of clean up. And it looks like Noble want to try and make something happen. The Cataclysm coming out from Jigz, and Zapman immediately following up with the Suns. It's Skeeledon and Whalrus, though, are taking a lot of damage. Homiefe goes up into the air as the final judgment from andinster is off the mark.
Homie a little bit too deep there with that ultimate. Can't quite find it. Wubbn finds 2 with that knockup. Good crush from moswal as well. Snipes looking for Jigz. Wow, he needs the last one, but can't quite find him.
He hit 2, but not the smallest one, and that was the cleanup that we're talking about, so important for Noble. They weren't quite able to get. So even though Jigz is low, he'll just go back and heal back up, and Skeeledon has to back up for Noble as well, so they don't exactly have a man advantage, though Jigz will be back here soon.
Andinster almost hits that ultimate, but that's the big difference maker for Noble, is that Andy doesn't connect with that final judgment. moswal again holding on to that ultimate during the entirety of that team fight. His ultimate he's been very patient with it, maybe to a fault. Like to see him use it.
Jigz gets pulled in and rooted, the crush damage, and finally the Ama monster comes through. Jigz gets deleted from the map. Skeeledon, though, able to clean up Skeeledon. Off the mark with that second one was moswal, and now it's Wubbn and Wowy who are in trouble as Skeeledon lets the Thorns run through the team fight. He's being the front line that Spacestation need.
Whalrus gets stunned off the bounce. Homie gonna clean it up, but a 4-man ultimate from Skeeledon sets all that in motion for Spacestation. You trade your support out. There comes the ultimate from moswal. Finally pulls it out, and in the right moment, but just such a good job by Spacestation to keep the fight going afterwards.
And moswal's off the mark with that second I'm a monster, I think, is another big part of why that doesn't go well. You're right, they clean up Jigz, but when he's not able to find anyone else and they're sort of clumped on each other in that narrow corridor, Skeeledon lands on 4 members, and he's going through with the thorns, with those, with the tendrils as well, and there's nothing that Noble can do to try and stick around that team fight. Now they clean up the tier 1 tower in mid to Spacestation, and they head towards that portal demon.
Scary really carried that engagement for Spacestation, because as Jigz is getting knocked down by I'm a Monster, he finds Skeeledon all by himself in the midst of everyone, because all of Noble's looking at what moswal's doing to Jigz with that I'm a Monster. Scary is very clearly team fighting way better than his laning phase has been going so far. This is 2 games in a row where his laning phase has gotten poorly, he's gotten himself behind, and then 2 games in a row, to his credit, where he's come back and had huge impact in the team fights. He's level 20, Whalrus is level 17, again, finding way more farm than Whalrus on the right side of the map, and making a bigger impact in these team fights as well.
Skeeledon just sort of sidestepping the pull there from Wubbn. Just going to head back and back off. But now, Spacestation are the ones that have the Portal Demon. Spacestation are the ones who can set up and try and establish control around this Fire Giant pit. Again, now we're 28 minutes into this game, so both these teams are more than capable of burning these late-game objectives easily and then coming down and trying to start taking out these towers. All Tier 2 towers are up for both teams. That's a lot of gold still in the map. So even though things are even, winning one of these fights right now can mean that your team starts taking a huge advantage off it as Wubbn gets stunned.
In trouble. Skeeledon going to blink in to try and help out his support, but again, he's walled off beautifully by Homiefe. Final Judgment, just a little bit too short, can't quite find him, but Skeeledon will up and over with that Lord of the Afterlife.
And Homiefe ends up landing in the back, or landing in the middle of the team fight now, able to get some damage off. Whalrus very low, as well as Wubbn's already back to base. Zapman cleans him up. Now it's Wowy who's in a lot of trouble, and he's got to back off. This is the team fight we were talking about, as andinster deletes moswal as well, where now things are going so heavily in favor of Spacestation Gaming. At this point, only takes 1 team fight.
Wubbn just out of position there. He gets caught in a bad spot, and that forces Noble to get into the fight and help try and peel for their support. But that fight had gone so poorly for them right off the bat that Spacestation is able to find it again. Skeeledon does a great job of controlling that. Zapman with the ultimate, he hasn't been really looked at. andinster's on the other side of the wall. No chance for anyone on Noble to zone him away from that team fight. Really well done by Spacestation.
Now the Fire Giant has been taken in favor of Spacestation Gaming. Whalrus and moswal will be back here before too long. Only about 10 seconds waiting on moswal, but the problem is the regeneration and the extra damage on the structures that Spacestation are going to have when they come in and start trying to make their push. As we said earlier, there's still plenty of gold on the map for them. So they go in, farm up that gold, then they back spend it, and sort of create a gold lead for themselves. Even though it's not as if they ran away with the game early, this is where they start to try and put some space between themselves and Noble, as they're already up about 5,000 or 6,000 gold.
Well, there's already space between them because they're a space station. They're in space. They're actually in orbit. And Noble, I mean, I wouldn't personally describe space as Noble. I've never met space. I've never been there, but I can't imagine that'd be the first word that I'd think of there, you know?
Certainly is space in the name of the team Space Station at the very least. So that's something that they've got. Yep, that's something they've got going for them in their favor. What they really have going in their favor, though, is that Fire Giant. They group in the middle lane and start moving to take down this Tier 2 tower. It's very low. It's going to fall. No chance of defending on it. Does Noble defend any of these structures?
I can't imagine that they want to heavily commit to a Tier 2. Now, maybe if Space Station try and wrap around the backside of a Tier 2, backdoor a Tier 2, they could look for the fight. But Jigz immediately using the ultimate on a Skeeledon because andinster's right there with the follow-up, knowing that Skilly didn't have any beads, but that was the only one there.
Skeeledon had that shield to keep him alive. The ultimate comes out from Zapman on top to try and help Scary D get away, but there was just way too much damage coming out. He had to back off. Now we see the blink going in. Skeeledon looks to try and catch andinster in the back line. This could be huge, but Homiefe is here to try and help. Skeeledon does clean up andinster. That's pretty big. A lot of damage for Space Station going to be missing.
Finally, someone recognizes that andinster is leaving himself completely alone in these team fights, and the only reason that he gets caught out of position there is the blink from Skeeledon, but that pickup ends up being huge for Noble, finding andinster all alone on those backside harpies. Wowy with the snipes over the top as well. moswal did a great job in that engagement. Multi-man root, multi-man crush. That did a lot of damage to Zapman and to Jigz and forced him out. But again, he's the only one in these team fights on the side of Noble at least that is holding his ultimate really long. That could have been a kill on the Jigz and or Zap if moswal just pulls the trigger a little bit earlier on the I'm a Monster.
And I get why they're cutting you that 5,000 gem a year salary. The call you made in that last engagement was perfect. They didn't want to take the fight on the Tier 2 itself, but because Space Station sort of fought in the jungle, we're trying to loop around, Noble felt comfortable taking the fight. And in the end, Skeeledon's able to clean up andinster. Zapman does take that gold fury because Noble still can't move too far out, but this gives Noble a chance to be in position for this portal demon when it spawns.
And that's going to be very, very shortly. andinster's back, so even without his ultimate, going to be able to make an impact, and that ultimate should be coming up sooner rather than later. Noble decided that they'd rather not defend here, even with the Fire Giant, because the Fire Giant's still on space. 4 members of Space Station for about another minute. So Space Station could come through Portal Demon here and give another go at a Tier 2 push, probably on this right-hand side if they so choose.
Now, does Space Station, when they back, do they have to put on helmets?
No, because they're actually accustomed to they're on a space station.
Oh, okay, so
they're not in space.
That would be ridiculous. Yeah.
Well, yeah. What are you
thinking?
thinking?
Yeah, that would be actually silly. Yeah, if Space Station were in space. But that's okay. They're at least here for this Tier 2 tower. Gonna give it another try on the right-hand side. Maybe that Tier 2 one was just a little bit cursed as Zapman recognizes he can take this down easily. That glyph does actually add a little bit more damage on auto attacks that pass through it too. So Thoth, along with being able to just delete you from, halfway across the map, also can help with your tower sieges.
Probably the most underrated part of Thoth's kit is how good he is at burning objectives and towers for both himself and teammates. I mean, you set up that Glyph of Pain, you're increasing your DPS by a very, very significant margin, especially now that andinster's level 19, he's got it maxed out. You're going to be getting an extra, 55 damage per auto for every ranged character that's throwing it through there.
We give Fafnir a lot of credit for doing that, essentially the same thing. andinster is able to help set up damage onto those structures and towers as well, or not andinster himself, but certainly Thoth. I mean, I'm sure Andy is pretty good at structures, but that's something that's in Thoth's kit. Now we see Space Station regrouping, recognizing now that the Fire Giant's only 30 or so seconds away from respawning, and they've got a lot of sentry wards down. There's really no vision for Noble about what's happening around that Fire Giant pit. If someone wants to go in and take a look, they're going to have to face check.
And this is the right timing for that Tier 2 to go down, as there's a Blink Cataclysm from Jigz immediately onto Wubbn. He's focused down, and he's brought back towards the entirety of Space Station.
Wubbn is forced to go in, but now it's Homiefe who lands down and tries to put some damage on the Skeeledon. The wall is good, and the follow-up is better. moswal hitting 3 members with that crush, but andinster takes down Whalrus. Skeeledon looking to be in a lot of trouble as well, as Homiefe ends up cleaning up that kill. Now it's a 5v3 in favor of Space Station. moswal and Wubbn so low. Wubbn not just low, but back to base. Scary D helps clean up that one, and Jigz gets Wowy.
And again, moswal the only one left alive. Everyone else else from Noble caught out, and it starts with Wubbn being out of position on that right side jungle. Another perfect wall from Homiefe, and what was working in the early game for Spacestation ends up working again in the late game.
And Spacestation can just end off that. Spacestation get that team fight. They recognize just 34 minutes into the game. They don't need the Fire Giant. The Phoenix falls. moswal goes up into the I'm a Monster, but it's not enough. They can't defend it. So Spacestation, off the back of what feels like just one team fight yet again, they come in, they break the base, and they take the set 2-0.
Look, unfortunate for Noble. They don't find any victories here, and there are no real moral victories. However, this is the best they've looked all fall split, and that's including their 2-0 over a Mighty Storm team that was reeling with their old roster. This looked like a team that has potential to be competitive in this league and stay within that top 6. Between them and Allegiance, those are the two that I'm really looking at on who's going to be able to stay in that top 6 position, because that could be a very, very close matchup between the two of them.
As I said earlier, though, we're later into the split now, so it's a lot harder for just looking competitive in these matches to kind of mean very much. But I agree, it'll be very close between the two of them and ALG for that final spot. We do have some more NA action for you, though. We're going to be right back after this quick pause.